Hey there, EB here. Good Friday to everyone. Coming into the fall, big football weekend, have some good games with Tennessee. We'll talk about that. But before I get started on my weekly update, I want to say that I don't mean to offend anyone with what I say. But, if we can have real, honest discourse where I state certain facts and you may disagree with those facts. The former senator from New York, Daniel Patrick Moynihan, said everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not their own set of facts. So, as long as I'm being factual, I don't think you should have any ill will towards me. I think you can disagree with me. I think you could think I'm stupid. I think you could think I'm on the wrong side of the issue. But there's no reason for hate or to ridicule anyone for their opinions. There is the right to point out if somebody's factually inaccurate. And so I try to be as factually accurate as possible. I try to verify what I say from a number of different sources before I say it. But again, a lot of the things that I say are opinion. And you can disagree with that, but you should respect my opinion as I try to respect everyone else's opinion. Sometimes it's hard, and I get it that sometimes it's hard to respect my opinion. So, with that said, we'll move into this week's weekly update. I think the first thing I want to talk about is the Israeli technological war that they're having with Lebanon is absolutely stunning. Earlier this week, at a precise time, 2,800 pagers, the old, doctors' pagers that they would have on their waistbands in the 90s and early 2000s, exploded at one time, causing massive injuries. At the time, I think it was 14 deaths, um, 2,800 people injured, anywhere from their groin area to their hands to their legs. Um, just extraordinary that Israel was able to coordinate with the manufacturer of these paging devices. They went through an intermediary, I think, in Europe somewhere where they planted the explosives and able to have a secret like that remain inviolate is just extraordinary. Can you imagine how many people in the distribution chain were privy to this information? It's just crazy that they could keep it quiet, that somebody wouldn't have tried to sell that information to Iran or to Lebanon or Hezbollah is just extraordinary. I understand that the reason it happened this week is because Israel was put on notice that either the Hezbollah had found out about the pagers and there was explosive devices in them, or that Hezbollah was about to launch a massive rocket attack. It was extraordinary. I don't think the United States could ever have pulled something like that off on its own, because I think there's too many people in our chain of knowledge who would uh, go public with that information. But needless to say, the next day they did it again with walkie-talkies. So can you imagine how unnerved Hezbollah is? They can't use cell phones because that's why they went to the pagers and walkie-talkies. Now they can't communicate with each other to coordinate any type of rocket launch or attacks. More importantly, they got to be afraid of turning on their microwave or their TV for fear that that could happen as well. It creates a lot of uncertainty in this terrorist organization. It tells me that Israel and their intelligence is exceptional. The fact that they could go into Iran a couple of weeks ago and kill a Hamas leader, they've done it in Yemen, um, tells me that they know where Sinwar is, but they're not killing him yet. He's the last leader of Hamas because they don't want to, further exacerbate the situation. But there's no doubt about it that the intelligence capability of Israel and its um, revolutionary Mossad unit is extraordinary. So I thought that was amazing. Yesterday, we had two big news come out. One in North Carolina, Mark Robinson, who is the current lieutenant governor, who's Republican, um, is now taking over the seat for the governor who is term limit out. I think his name is Cooper. And Mark Robinson is a very controversial figure. He's an African American, which is awesome, running for a statewide office in the South. Heavily endorsed by Trump. Trump called him Martin Luther King on steroids, even though Mark Robinson routinely bashes Martin Luther King and those in the civil rights era and those who currently champion civil rights. He's a very divisive figure. Talks about that slavery is good. He's made comments that certain black people deserve to be slaves, and that there was a real positive effect of slavery. He's called the Holocaust hogwash. But what came out yesterday was really extraordinary. Evidently, 10 years ago, before he was heavily involved in politics, he was on a number of porn sites. This is what the allegations are. And they were able to figure out it was him because he uses this specific handle on all of his different social platforms. And he called himself the Black Nazi. He made comments about black people in slavery again. He made comments about very perverted issues sexually. And to the Democrats' delight, he had until 11:59 last night to jump out of the race so that they could replace him with another candidate. And fortunately for the Democrats, he said, "I'm staying in the race." Trump now is distancing himself from Robinson. Trump is going to North Carolina this weekend, and Robinson was disinvited from talking on the stage. Smart move by Trump. And the Democrats are very happy because even before this happened, Mark Robinson was 10 points down in the poll. So that was a really, really interesting development yesterday. Like most politicians today, he's unwilling to accept responsibility, comes out with the normal trope now: fake news, not me. Somebody stole my identity. I'm being framed. I'm being railroaded. I'm being gaslighted, yada, yada, yada. Nobody's willing to take responsibility in this day and age for things that happened in their past. It's always somebody else's fault, or I did it because somebody else did it too, or you did it worse. It's all bullshit. Um, the next thing that came out yesterday was on Robert F. Kennedy. Seems that he had a interview with a journalist from the New Yorker magazine last November, and they started sexting with each other. And there was an allegation by some in the know that they actually had a romantic affair with each other. I find that curious, not really curious because they're Kennedys. We always knew about the peccadillos of John F. Kennedy, and he was a womanizer. But I feel bad for Cheryl, his wife, because I'm a huge Curb Your Enthusiasm fan. I feel bad for any spouse if there would be infidelity on one spouse or the other. But certainly with public figures like him, it becomes more public. And in this case, she came forward, reported herself because she violated the Journalistic Ethics Act by doing a story on somebody that you're having some kind of inappropriate relationship with. Certainly clouds your objectivity and constitutes a conflict of interest. Of course, Kennedy denied it, said he only met her once, but there'll be text messages, if true, that support the issue of sexting. But what I found interesting about the story is I think this is Kennedy's third marriage. The second marriage ended with infidelity, where Kennedy has admitted that he has a propensity to cheat on his wives, and admitted in that divorce proceeding that, get this, folks, cheated on his wife, Richardson, I think it was her last name, 36 times with different women during the marriage. I I don't know many people that have had sex with 36 different people in their life, let alone during, uh, when you're supposed to be monogamous with a wife. And who knows, maybe they had a situation. Yeah, Kim Simmons just popped on. Maybe had a situation where they had an arrangement, but 36 times seems to be a lot. It also is similar to a couple of years ago when we had the Iraq War going on, and we had General Petraeus who took over the planning and field battle strategy for winning the war in Iraq. And, everybody said, oh my God, he's a 4-star general, he's great. Well, he was being interviewed by somebody and he ended up having a marital affair with that woman too. So it's kind of similar to it. The next thing that I want to talk about is the assassination attempt again on former President Trump in West Palm Beach, Florida. Um, former President Trump likes to golf. So it's one thing we do have in common. Not not much else, but we do like golf. And what came out is that this individual who is from, I think, West Virginia or North Carolina, and also has a home in Hawaii, waited 12 hours on the golf course and had his butt of his automatic rifle, which is interesting because he was a convicted felon, through the fence, through the shrubs, pointing at a hole where President Trump was going to play through. I think at the time he was like at the 5th hole, and this was on the 6th hole. And we have a real problem in our country. I'm going to say it again. If we have to reduce ourselves to violence and resort to violence to take care of our political enemies, then we are not a democracy anymore. We are a country in anarchy. The place to take care of it is in the voting booth. Um, if you disagree with somebody, I have profound disagreements with former President Trump, but under no circumstances should we resort to killing people that we politically disagree with. It's abhorrent. The real problem we're having right now is that the Secret Service protection that is afforded former presidents is not as robust as, let's say, it is for current President Biden or current Vice President Kamala Harris. So the fact that President Trump likes to golf and golfs frequently on his golf courses is a real problem, because a lot of his golf courses are located near highways, and golf courses sprawl acres and acres and acres, and it's very difficult to have a totally secure environment. So upset about the assassination attempt. I think it only um, helps President Trump, certainly cements his supporters, may bring over some sympathizers who can sympathize with what is going on. But if I'm President Trump, I'm definitely not sleeping good at night, because uh, sooner or later, if this keeps up and the Secret Service can't figure out a way to get him safe, God forbid, somebody is going to get a shot off, similar to what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And if he is assassinated, then he becomes a martyr, and then I don't think our country will ever recover from it. It still hasn't recovered from Kennedy, still hasn't recovered from a lot of the other assassination attempts that have taken place, certainly with Reagan and John Hinckley. Interesting that John Hinckley is now a musician. He has been released from the mental hospital and not prosecuted, and he's speaking out about what he did. And but he rightfully so is being restricted from his musical career, from playing in certain venues. Um, Not much said about President Ford when he was shot. Um, and there was a shot at an attempt on his life, but um, this is a troubling development that we're seeing too frequently, and people talking about too frequently. So let's take care of that. South Carolina is going to execute its first person, Freddie Owens. Um, he would not choose his method of death because I think it conflicts with some of his religious beliefs. So his lawyer chose lethal injection. And now um, we do have the capability and the capacity with the chemical to kill somebody. The question is it going to work? Is it going to be cruel and unusual? Is it going to happen instantaneously? Before, there was a mixture of a certain number of chemicals, and the companies were identified and it was you couldn't get the drugs necessary because companies didn't want that bad press. Um, Now there is the new law that says the companies can't be identified that manufacture these chemicals. I don't know how I feel on the death penalty. I'm for it, but then there's times when I really tough on myself and say, how dare we take another human life just because somebody took a human life? But I do believe that there are so despicable people in this world, so evil, so incapable of any type of rehabilitation, that they have forfeited their right to live. I'm sorry. Things that are done to kids, things that are done to women, um, with it not a crime that if somebody's bank robbing, it turns into a felony murder or something like that. But people who chain people up for years and years on end, rape them and then kill them and maul them. Those kind of people have forfeited their right to live. So that's one thing that I do struggle with, though. Admittedly, I can see myself at some days saying, "Eric, how dare you say you're pro death penalty?" But I am. I think at the end of the day, I am pro death penalty. So we're also seeing former House of Representative Marvin Pendarvis, who was really an up and coming young House member from Charleston, African American, a real voice in his community. The entire situation surrounding his demise as a representative is disappointing. It's not only disappointing to me as a member of the bar, but certainly I'm sure it is to his constituents and the African American community, which was hoping that he was going to be a rising star. We were one of the first attorneys that brought suit against Marvin Pendarvis on behalf of our client Adrian Lewis, and the allegations are that he, you know, manipulated our client, stole money from him. And my understanding is that there's so many more. We've certainly received a number of phone calls from other alleged clients who were victimized by him, but there's other attorneys that I understand who are representing uh, Marvin at this time. And there's scuttlebutt on the street that there's FBI investigation going on, and there's allegations of bribery and everything under the sun. So this one's going to be a developing story. Could be similar to Murdaugh in the sense that there's some influential people that could be involved more than just Marvin. So we shall see how this plays out. But he appeared to be an important voice for his community, and but he chose to misuse the authority of his office and the privilege of being a lawyer. The people deserve better, and hopefully, he's addressing whatever issues has led to his fall from grace. But I am very proud of my partner Ronnie Richter and Scott Magillo, our associate, uh, for bringing this issue to the forefront. We do this a lot. We sue important people and bring out problems that they have in their professional or personal capacity, and it's a job that I think that we have as lawyers. It's a self-policing profession, and so we have a job to report this type of conduct. And when we see malpractice, our rules of professional conduct say we have a duty to turn it over to the bar. And when we file a malpractice complaint in court, we provide a copy to the bar. You could virtually argue that we're snitches, but we're snitches that do it in the open. So snitches, they say, get stitches. Certainly, we've had our share of people getting mad at us for it, but it is a badge of honor that we do wear. The next thing I want to talk about, which is totally, totally disgusting, is Puff Daddy P. Diddy. He was denied bail again yesterday. A federal court judge said no bail after he was denied bail from the state court after he was arrested. Evidently, he flew to New York knowing that he was going to be arrested, turned himself in, and is currently at the Brooklyn jail, which everyone knows from the Epstein case and the Gazelle Maxaline or whatever her name is, who was his handler. She stayed there, and there's allegations that the food has maggots and worms in it, and it's very unsafe. Um, he had offered up to the court a $50 million bond. He had said that he would not have any women at his house. Um, he is selling his airplane. He would confine himself to his 50,000 square foot house in Miami. And the court held that he was not only a flight risk because of his money, even though he was willing, he already turned his passport in and said everyone in his family would turn their passports in. Um, the judge held that he's a danger to the community because he has tried to influence a number of uh, witnesses. And he did that by filming them when they were having these sex off parties, they called, um, without their knowledge. And then he would use those films to blackmail them and pressure them to keep it quiet. Evidently, you can't do this without the cooperation of a number of administration staff members in your whole entourage. And, there were stories of him using violence towards women and men. And he's had this ongoing feud for years with 50 Cent, where 50 would question his manhood because there were allegations that Puff Daddy, you know, um, was had relationships with men and forced sex with men, and just crazy stuff that, even former Penthouse wouldn't even write about. Lots of similarities to R. Kelly. I guess what you see is when, these these moguls who were former musicians, former gang members. Let's just be honest. When he was with Biggie Smalls, there were allegations of violence, certainly shooting between the rap members in the '90s when Tupac Shakur got killed. I mean, these guys were nothing but street thugs, and now all of a sudden they're moguls. They become, billionaires running industries, clothing industries, Bad Boy Records, you name it. But they become sexual deviants, and you wonder, why do they become sexual deviants? Maybe it's because they sing about it. Maybe it's because they talk about demeaning women in their songs. Maybe they talk about uh, you know position of authority and how they wield it and using guns, and it becomes, like, you say it long enough, you say it loud enough, all of a sudden it becomes true. you know the harshness of their rhetoric, their vulgarity, their the way they talk about women. I'm a huge Eminem fan, but he's got some lyrics where he says, "I batter my women like I batter a cake." I mean, give me a frickin' break. um, it's no wonder these communities have so much violence within. So the language seems to become a way of life. Um, I am proud of that judge, similar to what Amanda Allred just said. Good for the judge. He needs to sit and rot and wait for his trial. Federal court has speedy trial rights. I'm sure he's going to want his trial rights to go fast, but not too fast. My understanding is they have a significant amount of evidence of this enterprise. They name a 37-year-old, his administrative assistant, as being the facilitator for a lot of these male and female prostitutes. Um, and it all started with that video of him beating the tar out of his former girlfriend, Cassie. Um, it's disgraceful. He punches her, he kicks her, he tried to break the camera, then he tried to bribe the hotel for the film. Um, there's cameras everywhere, so you better, unless you're in your home, if you're out there doing something, at a traffic light's going to get you, a camera on the side of a building is going to get you, or somebody holding a handheld phone is going to get you. That is one of the good things of technology, but I have no pity for him. um, I think that uh, he's a bad man, and I think he does a disservice to his community of um, African Americans, also of the musician community, the rapping community, and maybe we shouldn't put these people on so high up on a pedestal. Um, whether it's Puffy Combs, whether it's R. Kelly, whether it's Jay Z. maybe we should realize that just because they get all this money and billions doesn't make them into really good citizens. The next thing I want to talk about is I just finished this documentary called The Money Game. It is on the NIL, name, image, and likeness, and it's about LSU, and it is stunning, stunning the amount of money that these college athletes are getting. Angel Reese made about $7 million last year on all her advertising. There's a local law firm in Louisiana where it's a successful personal injury attorney who drives a Rolls Royce who pays all these athletes. Olivia Dunn, a gymnast, she's making over $9 million a year. No wonder she came back for her fifth year this year for college because, there's no pro gymnastics. So she's got to make her money now. And then I'm sure she'll transform over into full time modeling or some type of acting career. She does advertising for Viore gym clothes and really well spoken young woman, but it is totally obscene how much money is being given to these athletes. They're not students anymore. They're there with businesses. They meet every day. They have the business managers that meet with them and live with them. They facilitate their TikToks and their clickbaits. And it is so unseemly. And Nick Saban was rushed out of college football because he said, he got sick of his players coming up and saying, "How much are you going to pay me now, coach?" And he said, when I realized that I had to recruit my locker room at the end of every football season harder than I had to recruit new recruits who are high school graduates, to recruit these players that I've already recruited and are with my program to stay so that they don't go through the transfer portal, he said, I'm done. I'm done. And he walked away. And it's really a shame because he was an excellent football coach. And I'm virtually certain he would have had more championships than the 7 or 8 that he's got right now. Certainly the 6 for Alabama. Um, College football is interesting this year. I was so proud of South Carolina versus LSU last week. They blew the game. They had a 17-point lead. Their quarterback, Lenoria Sellers, got injured. I thought they really punched LSU in the face. One of my favorite lines is everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. LSU had a plan like they were going to come into Williams-Brice Stadium and just run it out, run the cocks right out of their own stadium, and they got punched in the face. But they ended up winning. It's a shame. But if you watch that money game, wait till you see the facilities that LSU has for its athletes. Wait till you see all the different uh, entertainment rooms and luxury chairs and where these kids are living. They're not living in the dorm where I lived in a bunk bed. They're living in these beautiful townhouses and $1 million homes. It really is extraordinary. You know, there's the Tennessee quarterback, Nico Impialella. He got supposedly an $8 million NIL deal in 2022, an amazing quarterback. They're putting up points that are just insane. You have certainly Arch Manning at Texas. We never heard what his NIL money was, but last week he got really a lot of time because the starting quarterback got injured, had an abdominal injury. He threw for 2 touchdowns, ran for a touchdown. His NIL money must be off the charts. You have the quarterback, Dylan Raviola from Colorado, another kind of Patrick Mahomes clone. This kid's getting huge money. So I think we're headed down a really bad road with college athletics. They're talking about now just paying all athletes, whether you're an equestrian horse rider, a tennis player, because can you imagine the animosity on the gymnastics team where Libby Dunn isn't the best gymnast on the team? Certainly great. She's not there just for her face. If you watch the name, image, and likeness, she does an amazing floor routine. She's one of the best at the uneven parallel bars. She was a former U.S. national gymnast. She was in Barra Caroli's camps. But can you imagine these other kids that have no name, image, or likeness, and she's driving up in her Mercedes. They all had Mercedes. One of these kids had a G-Wagon, just that he got for posting 2 times on TikTok. So I think it's going to cause a lot of problems. I don't know if there's going to be enough money to distribute out and pay all these athletes, but it's going to be very interesting. Um, the next thing I want to talk about is P. Diddy, not P. Diddy, excuse me, Shohei Otani. What he did last night, he hit 3 home runs. He had 2 more stolen bases, and he became the first athlete baseball player in the history of baseball to hit 50 home runs in one season and have more than 50 stolen bases. You're talking about a guy that's about 6 feet 215 pounds, that's fast as lightning. And he hit 3 home runs last night for the first time in his career. He was 6 for 6 and had 10 RBIs. Never has been done in the history of baseball. Don't forget, this guy's a pitcher that has an ERA less than 2.75. And he may be pitching again, even though he got Tommy John surgery last year. He may be pitching in the if the Dodgers get deep into the playoffs, because they have tremendous uh, injuries in their pitching staff. Mookie Betts, who's one of the best 5-tool baseball players out there, said he's just stunned watching Otani. He says he's just like us, watches him and all. He just has a closer seat. And everybody likes to say, oh, he's not Babe Ruth, this and that. What he's done, he's on a faster pace to break every record in of Babe Ruth. And he just does it with quiet. He doesn't talk, obviously, because he I don't think he's fluent in English. But most importantly, he came from the American League to the National League this year, never faced the pitchers, and is just hitting the ball. The only maybe weakness he has, he doesn't hit for average. So you could say, well, Mantle and Ted Williams and Willie Mays and Aaron all hit for average. That's true. But this guy is a once in a lifetime, not a generation, a once in a lifetime player. Used to think that Mike Trout was the best player since Mickey Mantle, obviously Bryce Harper, Mookie Betts, Aaron Judge. They can't hold a candle to this guy. So that's pretty interesting. The Mets are on an amazing run right now. They're 2 or 3 games ahead, unfortunately, of the Braves, who I like. Francisco Lindler is having an amazing season, but he won't get the MVP because American League will go to Judge, National League will go to Otani. On the football front, can you believe the Saints? They're 2-0. Can you believe the Vikings with a backup quarterback, Sam Darnold? They're 2-0. And very disappointed in my Eagles, who gave up the game on Monday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons. Last night, the Patriots got smoked by the Jets. Aaron Rodgers, clearly, even at 41 years old, still has it, and still has it as good as any quarterback in the NFL. We've had some issues with President Trump being behind, in the former President Trump being behind in the polls, and now getting pretty desperate. He's talking about bringing back the Muslim ban and banning certain countries from letting their citizens come in the United States. What everybody really doesn't know is when he did the Muslim ban in 2016 against all the countries that have predominantly Muslim population, it was every country except the countries where he has a golf course in. If you look it up, all of the Middle East countries, it was except the ones, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, different smaller countries where he has his golf courses, Trump courses. They didn't have a Muslim ban, but every other country that didn't have his golf courses had the Muslim ban. He's been parading around with this 9/11 denier. Her name is Laura Loomis. He has tried to say that she's a real spunky individual, but there are a number of Republicans who have said, look, you got to get away from her. And Marjorie Taylor Greene said even she's too much for her. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene comes out against somebody and says, look, you don't need to be hanging around with this kind of conspiracy theorist, that's a real problem. JD Vance, again, we're having to talk about the story. I got a lot of criticism this week. Just go back and watch his interview on Sunday with Dana Bash. He said the following, and these are the exact words. Dana, if I have to make up a story to get the press to cover something that's important, such as immigration, I don't have a problem and I will do it again. That is disgraceful. Look at what's happening in Springfield. Trump is now saying he wants to go to Springfield, Ohio. The mayor, who's Republican, the governor, who's Republican, Mike DeWitt, said, don't come. They've created so many problems with bomb scares in the hospitals and schools. Kids this week, school was canceled. They're now doing virtual. They missed their school photograph day. You can't make up stories about a group of an ethnic group of people that aren't true. It targets them. They are not illegals. Haitians are not illegals. They're legally there. Springfield, Ohio wanted them because they need them for their various manufacturing and industrial jobs. They actually said they're great employees and they're law abiding citizens. Mike DeWitt came out, the governor of Ohio, who's Republican, and said Trump and Vance are categorically false in what they're spreading about the cats and dogs. The lady who reported that her cat was missing and that someone stole it and it was a Haitian found the cat. It was downstairs in the basement or in the, or in their crawl space. So we can have the situations where we start to talk about things that aren't true. And now they're talking about mass deporting people. Where are they going to put all these people? Who's going to go get them and drag them out of people's homes? And where are they going to keep them? Is there a fenced in area? What are we going to do? Start internment camps like we had in Japan at the time? So I think it's something that we have to really look at and and use the morality and the ethics that we have and say, is this really right to target a group of people that are here legally? I get it if they're illegal, but the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, were legally permitted to come into this country because they needed the labor. So let's calm it down a little bit. Last night, Renee and I and our friend Danny and Cindy went to Charleston. First time I've ever been to the Charleston Coliseum in North Charleston. Beautiful venue. And we saw Jelly Roll. 2 weeks ago, I never heard of Jelly Roll. Honest to God, I must be living in a cave, but I didn't know it. And a pretty interesting guy who had a very troubled background in prison, drugs, gangs, now talks about that we're all broken people, and we are all broken people. We all have had issues in our background that have hurt, and we've had to overcome. His message is one of positive message. It's one of love. He talks about, uh, don't judge people, give them a chance. The book is never closed, and I always say that life's 4 quarters, and we can't close the book on somebody simply because they had a bad first quarter. So, with that said, I'm going to move to the wrap up questions. Amanda said, do you think the media holds some responsibility for the state of our current political environment? 100%, Amanda. I think on both sides. I think CNN and MSNBC paint Trump and JD Vance and a lot of the Republicans in a bad light. They can pick and choose some of the things that they may say in an hour-long speech, and it's horrible. But then I also say the same thing about Fox News and News Nation. I mean, Fox News, thankfully, Sean Hannity and Lauren Ingraham and some of these other people say, look, we're not journalists, we're not news people, we're opinion. So they've been truthful that they're stating their opinion. Remember what I said in the beginning. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, not their own set of facts. So I take with what Sean Hannity says with a grain of salt. Newsmax, they promote, I think, divisiveness. So I don't know where I can go except to BBC and some single podcast political guys that are in the middle to get that fair and balanced type of objective news. I don't think you can get it anymore. But in answer to your question, Amanda, I 100% agree that the media is doing it. I also agree that foreign countries such as Iran and Russia are spreading misinformation. What you see on the internet, you can't always believe. It's tough to fact check in real time. A lie travels halfway around the world before truth can lace up its shoes. Next, do you really think we have undecided voters out there, or do you think it's more people deciding if they will go and vote? Um, there's probably a small percentage of undecided that are flipping one way or the other because their spouse may be one way and they're a little bit out. But I totally agree that it's cemented. I think that the Republican voters and Trump supporters are cemented. I think that the Democratic voters are cemented, and they're definitely getting more cemented to Kamala now that she's in the race. Um, I think there's a lot of people who are saying they're undecided, but they're not. They're going to go in the voting booth. They know who the hell they're going to vote for. I think that Trump has much more support than the polls indicate. And if I had any advice for Kamala Harris, I would say you better get your butt at least 5 or 6 percentage points up to deal with the fact that there are voters out there who say they're not Trump supporters that are actually going to go in the voting booth and they're going to vote for Trump, or they're saying they're undecided and they're never going to pull the lever for a woman, and certainly not a black woman or a black person. So I think that exists out there. If I could sit down and talk with Trump and Harris, what constructive criticism would I give each? What do you think they both need to talk more or less about? I would tell Kamala, you better answer the question. Why is it that you got anointed? Why didn't you get one single vote to become the Democratic nominee? And Biden and Trump went through the primary process. What makes you have that right just to get anointed to the party? Two, I would say you have to show that you have more depth in your policy proposals. I'm extremely disappointed that she is not sitting for interviews, taking the hard questions, and isn't getting in front of a microphone and answering questions from the press. I mean, Trump will talk till his ears, my ears fall off, and I do give him that credit. It's the one thing that I do admire about him, that he's willing to talk, get in front of anybody, and he'll answer any question. You won't like his answers; they may be lies, but at least he's willing to take the heat. So that's what I would say to Kamala. You got to, you know, take the handcuffs off and get out there and put yourself in vulnerable positions. To Trump, you got to stop the rhetoric. You got to stop talking down the women and people and hate and just acting like you're the toughest guy in town when you're the biggest ass white pussy I've ever met in my life. You know, if you put this guy in a room, he wouldn't say half the things he said. I would tell him, talk about the fact that the Democrats uh, have created this border situation. Talk about the Democrats and inflation and the cost, the hard cost of what it would mean to a middle class family if inflation continues. Now, we have the stock market at its highest point. Interest rates were lowered a half a point. The housing industry is going to explode at this point. So it's going to be hard. But I would tell Trump to stop demeaning people, look more presidential. I get it that your whole persona is a tough guy act, and you're going to save America, yada yada yada. Um, by the way, America isn't so bad right now. Um, if you gave me the choice of living here or anywhere else, everybody's going to choose America. We're not a third world country. We're not a banana republic. If we elect Kamala Harris, the country isn't going to be over. We'll never have another, he says we'll never have another election again. That is 100% false. Don't fall for it. So I think they need to talk to us, not at us. Both candidates talk with us, listen more, find out what are the fears and anxieties that we have. So, with that said, I just want to acknowledge some of the people that are listening. Kim Simmons, thank you for coming and listening in. Amanda Allred, I totally agree that it seems like there's this putrid gene in the Kennedy family where they think that on one hand, they do great things for our country, but on the other hand, at home, when the doors close, they're just really damaged individuals. And I think, I don't know whether I believe in karma or bad curse or whatever. I don't believe in luck, except if you work hard, you'll get more luckier than you will if you don't work hard, but which is skill. But there seems to be a black cat hanging over that family. Morgan Sanders, thank you for coming. Happy Friday to you. Um, let's see who else do we have here. Gene Heath, thank you for coming. I appreciate you listening in. Thank you for calling me a good human being. You are too. Um, these rappers and athletes that we make into role models, Kim Simmons, I think it's something that they don't want, but they certainly exploit. Let's make our parents our role models. Let's make our teachers our role models. Let's make our good neighbors our role models. Lisa Nishad said, who lives up the street from me, hey, happy Friday. She's a great person. Love her husband, Shaheen, um, and their dog, Susie Q. So, with that, everybody have a great, great weekend. Thank you for listening. Sorry I went on for 45 minutes. We'll see you next week. EB out.